It's a Black Friday edition of PFTPM, no edition of PFT Live. We like to give the crew a couple of days off so they can relax and spend time with their family and get ready for the stretch run because it's going to be nutty as we go down the stretch and into the postseason. And yesterday's games, in which all three of the underdogs won straight up, contribute to the nuttiness before I get to the games. Black Friday, and I always laugh because I said this recently on PFT Live. Black Friday originated not as some positive thing. It was something that the workers at the stores like Walmart came up with because it's a horrible, unpleasant experience for them. They have Thanksgiving, and then they have to go in the next day and deal with all the craziness of all the people showing up to try to get the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. And they fight, and there's always video every year of some. Now, I don't know that there's some toy that everybody has to have this year, but there have been years where it's just a madhouse. So that's where Black Friday came from. And in a feat of marketing genius, the major corporations turned it into a good thing. We'll have a Black Friday game streaming for free on Amazon as they try to get you to buy stuff. And as I noted at PFT this morning, before I headed down here for this edition of PFTPM, on a day when everyone wants you to buy something, I want you to buy nothing. Go to Amazon, get the On Our Way Home ebook for free today. It's the second of up to 5 days, and that hinges on whether I remember to keep doing it. That the On Our Way Home ebook will be free of charge throughout this holiday season, and if so inclined, Big Shield, $14.99, right there. Boom, $14.99. Get one for yourself, get one for your cousin, get one for your brother, get one for your spouse. Get $14.99. And the hardest thing about Christmas gifts is, like, what am I going to get this person? You know, unless you're thinking about spending multiple thousands of dollars, that can become a problem. But if it's $14.99, boom, check. That's the check. That's the thing you're looking for, isn't it? Holiday season, check. You can get the On Our Way Home ebook free today. You can get the print edition anytime, $9.99. You can get Big Shield, $14.99. Check. And just hand them out. Stick them in a, what's that thing? Stocking. Stick them in a stocking. All right, off we go. And I didn't want to go chronological order or reverse chronological order for yesterday's games. I think we can all agree that the most significant game, big picture yesterday, was the middle game. Beyond the fact that the final audience numbers will be, I am convinced, greater than any regular season game in NFL history. 42-1 is the record set by the Giants-Cowboys 3 years ago in that Thanksgiving middle window. We've got the Nielsen big data plus whatever. I can't remember what it is. It's some clunky name, but it's jacked up all the ratings this year by 10%. So, all right, 42-1, 4.2, do the math. That's 46.4 right there. Right there. Apples to apples from 2022. I think it could hit 50. Oh, and the game delivered. It was exciting all the way down to the end. And it says a lot about where the Cowboys currently are. I don't want to start there. I want to be positive. The Cowboys have won 3 in a row since their bye week, since that Monday night loss to the Cardinals 27-17 heading into their bye week. They had the Marshawn Nealon tragedy, and compounding the situation was the players had scattered. It complicated the grieving process, that group collective, let's all get together and mourn the passing of our teammate. There was a lot of stuff they had to work through. And when things work out well, we just kind of take it for granted. But wouldn't we have expected this to be the kind of thing that could just make the Cowboys fall apart? And credit to Brian Schottenheimer, who has coached his way into the Coach of the Year conversation. He's 35-1. I checked the odds last night. Now, they may have moved since last night because people may be realizing, hey, better drop $1 or $2 on this long shot while it's still a long shot. But if the Cowboys, who are now 6-5-1, can continue this climb. They've beaten the 2 Super Bowl teams 4 days apart, people. The Eagles and the Chiefs, 4 days apart. If they can keep this thing rolling, they can roll right into the postseason. It's not going to be easy, though. It's not going to be easy. They have the Lions next week. Let's see if I can read my writing. Then they've got the Vikings, the Chargers, at the Commanders, and then at the Giants to end the season. The last two, they should be able to win, but division games, you never know. And you got the Commanders and the Giants playing the role of spoiler. They like to stick it to the Cowboys. Those aren't gimmies. But the three before that, Lions, Vikings, Chargers. Well, the Vikings, we know. Just make that a W. But this next game Thursday night, and I said after they beat the Raiders on the Monday night after the bye week, we're going to learn a lot about the Cowboys the next 3 weeks. Eagles, Chiefs, Lions. So far, it's win. And if they keep winning, they should be. They should be. There's no guarantee. But you add 5 wins to 11 to 6-5-1, you end up 11-5-1. That should be enough. That should be enough. And this could be a situation where that tie against the Packers from week 4 is either just enough to get them in or just enough to keep them out. The best news about a tiebreaker when you have ties involved is it's not relevant unless the Packers and the Cowboys are somehow tied. Then it becomes a little more problematic. For now, the tiebreakers would seem to favor the Packers. But Packers seem to be in position to just go ahead and win that division. Packers may not be in the wild card mix at all. We'll talk about them later on. But for the Cowboys, here's the reality. You've got the division winners who obviously get in. Then you got 3 wild cards. You're going to have 2 second-place teams from the NFC North and the NFC West. And then you got the third-place teams. Like the West may put, and right now, I think we would all agree there's a pretty damn good chance the Rams, the 49ers, and the Seahawks are all getting in. That leaves one spot. That leaves one spot for the second and third place team in the NFC North and the Cowboys. And I know Panthers fans, your team may be in the mix as well, but right now you're on the outside looking in at 6-6. You got to prove it. You got to win. You got to get yourself back into it. But if the Cowboys keep going, they should be able to edge out 2 of those 4 teams. That's what they're going to have to do. 2 of those 4 teams. Second and third place team in the West, second and third place team in the North. And that's going to leave a good team or 2 on the outside looking in. But the key for the Cowboys is to keep winning, and they understand that. Dak Prescott spoke about it last night, and he praised Brian Schottenheimer for how he has held the team together with the leadership, with the focus. They've settled into this sweet spot where they understand the assignment. Come back Sunday, get to work on next Thursday, and all that matters is getting to the win. That victory formation, and I'm paraphrasing what Dak said after the game, but the victory formation doesn't happen then. It is the product of everything you put into it, every little detail you pay attention to, everything you do that builds the blocks toward being able to walk off the field a winner. And the Cowboys did it yesterday with balance. That's been the issue with them. Their defense had been horrible. And one of the reasons why Schottenheimer needs to be taken seriously as coach of the year, he had one hand tied behind his back less than 2 weeks before the start of the season when Jerry Jones, owner/GM, traded Micah Parsons to the Packers. And yeah, it was a little rough at first, but they came around. And they believe the offense is always going to be good. And as the offense continues to perform, the defense develops confidence. They had those trades that brought in Logan Wilson and Quinnen Williams. And they're getting healthy. They've gotten healthy on defense. And it just kind of momentum and confidence creates more momentum and confidence. Football season starts at Thanksgiving. Well, the Cowboys got a little head start because they got those 2 wins heading into the Thanksgiving win, and off they go. But the margin for error for them is pretty slim. 1 loss, let's just say they go 4-1 the rest of the way. That's 10-6-1. That may be the situation where that tie against the Packers keeps you out. All they can control is winning. And the next challenge is coming up in just 6 days in Detroit. We'll talk about the Lions and the Packers coming up later. The Chiefs. The Chiefs just aren't the Chiefs anymore. They're not the Chiefs that we're used to. They're 6-6. And the games that we used to watch and have this sense of it's inevitable. It's like, I've made this comparison in the past, I think. Like, you go to a Superman movie, a superhero movie. Like, you know that at the end of the day, it's going to be a positive ending. And they put you on a roller coaster before you get to the ending. And you enjoy the roller coaster ride, but you know what the ending is going to be. That's how the Chiefs were last year. That's how the Chiefs have been in big games. They'll make it very interesting, but far more often than not, it's a happy ending for the Chiefs. Far more often than not, they find a way to win. And it felt like that was going to happen. When they took the lead 21-20, it's like, yeah, these are the Chiefs. These are the Chiefs we've grown accustomed to. They're going to be close enough in this game that at the end of the day, however it goes, whatever crazy twists and turns they have cooked up for us, it's going to be entertaining, and we know that they're going to come out with the victory. And like, oh, wait a minute. Yet another case where they didn't. And I know they just did on Sunday against the Colts. That just made it even more likely they would do it against the Cowboys. And now we have to take a step back and say they're 6-6. Where are they going to go from here? Patrick Mahomes said after the game he understands they need to win out. They have the Texans, the Chargers. They're at the Titans. They got the Broncos, and then they're at the Raiders. So 2 of those games should be easy wins at the Titans and at the Raiders. But come week 18, Raiders got a chance to screw things up for the Chiefs. Wouldn't the Raiders love to screw things up for the Chiefs? Wouldn't the Raiders love to be the ones to deliver the death blow to the Chiefs playoffs? Texans next week, that ain't going to be easy. Texans gave them 2 pretty good games last year, and the Texans' defense is better this year. Then they got to play the Chargers again. Chargers beat them in Brazil to start the season. They still have Denver coming to town. The good news is the tough games are at home. The 3 tough games left are all at Arrowhead Stadium. We saw what they did to the Colts. And on the road this year, it's not been pretty for the Chiefs. They're now 1-5 away from Arrowhead. So that's the silver lining. 3 tough games left, and they're all at home, where the Chiefs have performed better. They've looked more like the Chiefs when they're playing at home. That's where they beat the Ravens, for example. But on the road, those losses, and this is where the tiebreaker is going to be a problem, because they've lost to the Bills. They've lost to the Jaguars. They've lost to the Chargers. They've lost to the Broncos. They beat the Ravens, but we'll talk about the Ravens coming up. They may be irrelevant by the time this is all said and done. Tiebreakers are not in the Chiefs' favor. They just have to win. And if they keep winning, they'll be 11-6. That should be enough to get in, but you got to win 5 in a row. For a team that has lost 6 out of 12, winning 5 in a row, all right, let's see you go do it. Let's see what these Chiefs can do when their backs are firmly against the wall. And their backs were against the wall yesterday. That was a game they had to win. And the Cowboys, to their credit, they did not flinch. Once they fell behind, they didn't give in to the idea that, well, the Chiefs are inevitable. They went down the field, scored the touchdown, took the lead. George Pickens hurdling. You got to be careful, though, when you hurdle. Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about certain sensitive areas being struck with a fist this week, as we've established. And this goes all the way back to Eddie Murphy. You don't have to hit him, you just have to graze him. When he went up and over, there was a little grazing. But George was fine. And he caught the key 2-point conversion to make it a 28-21 game in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs. And then they held on. The Cowboys did for the 31-28 victory. One interesting point that I have to address, because we discussed this in the aftermath of the Monday night game between the Panthers and the 49ers. When you have a 15-yard penalty on the conversion, now the Panthers should have kept the point, 17-10, take the 15 yards on the kickoff, kick the ball out of bounds deliberately, or do an onside kick because they were trailing. They should have done something other than run a shotgun formation pass play from the 1 and lose the point. That's what they shouldn't have done. Well, the Cowboys, who had a roughing the passer penalty on the 2-point conversion throw from Dak Prescott to George Pickens to make it 28-21, that was the moment that they did the thing that the smart teams are going to do when you get the 15 yards after a try where there's some sort of a personal foul, unnecessary roughness, roughing the passer, whatever. You got the ball on the 50, and what did they do? They deliberately kicked the ball out of bounds. It was complicated by the fact that there was an illegal formation issue on the Cowboys, and you saw the explanation on the sidelines, and I don't know how much of it was the Chiefs didn't fully appreciate what the Cowboys were trying to do. I think Dave Toub and Andy Reid understand that part. It was, what's your decision when you've got these multiple penalties? Which one do you take? Which one do you decline? Now, look, I don't want to be critical of our friends at CBS, but I didn't hear a whole lot of discussion about what was happening and why it was happening. Not a lot of understanding of the rules among some of the broadcast teams out there. And this one's pretty basic. And I think it's part of the obligation of the networks to make sure that the audience understands what's happening. Anytime you've got that 15-yard penalty on a kickoff and you're kicking off from the 50, the no-brainer move is to kick it out of bounds inside the 25. Then the opposing team starts the next drive at the 25 instead of the 35 or the 40. No-brainer. Unless you're trailing and maybe you want to try an onside kick. In that case, the other team will get the ball somewhere between the 40 and the 35 if the onside kick doesn't work out. So here's where it went off the rails for the Cowboys. After the penalty, they were kicking off from the 45. Well, you still kick it out of bounds and concede the 30. I was shouting at the TV, concede the 30. Just concede the 30. What happened? The return went to like the 38 or the 39. Now, ultimately, the Cowboys won, but this is one of those fine points as we understand and process how this new kickoff formation is going to impact the game. We, as the people who talk about the game, have an obligation to understand and explain to you what's going on, because there is a lot of confusion now with the kickoff. And, when's it go to the 20? When's it go to the 35? When's it go to the 40? That was a point Sean Payton made last year. Let's not confuse this thing. Let's not make this so complicated that people don't understand it, because what happens is, we don't want to come watch a football game and do math. We don't want a flow chart there to understand how these rules apply. We just want to be entertained. We want to watch a game. We want it to be simple. They've complicated this. But again, our job is to simplify it. And this is the simplest explanation possible. When you're kicking off from the 50, you kick it out of bounds, unless you're trailing and you're willing to risk giving the other team the ball between the 35 and the 40. And I know analytics are going to be part of it, but the flow of the game, the circumstances, how much time's left, how many points have been scored, how well the offenses are moving, that's all part of the stew that the coach eventually needs to assess before making the decision. But I was surprised the Cowboys didn't go ahead and kick it out of bounds the second time and put the Chiefs on. That's the next level. That's the one we hadn't thought about. Well, what happens if there's a penalty that you got to kick it again from the 45? Kick it out of bounds again. Give them the 30. Just give them the 30. It's always 25 yards from the spot of the kick. Unless the ball goes out of bounds short of that, then it's where the ball goes out of bounds. So you got to at least get the ball 25 yards past the kickoff, get it out of bounds, concede the 25, or in the case of the Cowboys yesterday, give up the 30. My guy, George Pickens, I wrote the check. I ultimately didn't have to honor it. If he had gone 3 for 163 and 3 like Randy Moss, Thanksgiving 1998, I would have officially and permanently changed allegiances. He had 6 catches on 13 targets for 88 yards and that 2-point conversion. CeeDee Lamb, though, 7 catches, 112, and a touchdown. They needed to kind of get him back into it. He was becoming the forgotten man. You got 2 straight games of 140 plus from Pickens. You got Jerry Jones saying, I've never seen anything like this before. And you got CeeDee Lamb there. What the hell? What am I? And look, we've addressed the possibility that at some point when a decision is made about can we afford both Lamb and Pickens, we've assumed that it would be Pickens who would be out. Maybe Lamb that's out. Not necessarily this year, but it could be coming. You do a long-term extension with Pickens. It has low salary cap numbers in the early years. Kick the can. At some point, those CeeDee Lamb cap numbers and the George Pickens cap numbers could point to exactly what they did when they chose between CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. What did they do? 2 years into a 5-year, $100 million contract, they traded Amari Cooper. So Lamb reestablished himself. And look, for now, forget about all that stuff. All that matters for the Cowboys is Thursday against the Lions. And then after that, all that's going to matter is the following Sunday against the Vikings, a game that's set for Sunday Night Football on NBC and Peacock. One game at a time, and the Cowboys continue. We'll see if they can. But it's fun. It's fun to watch, and it's a good story. And the good stories just kind of organically bubble up during a football season. How they've reacted to the passing of Marshawn Nealon, how they've come together as a team, how that defense has improved on the fly. And I know the Cowboys are extremely polarizing. People love them, people hate them. But it is possible that the ultimate love-hate team is a team that gives us a pretty damn good story. And if this team gets into the playoffs, riding this momentum of what would be 8 straight wins, would you want your favorite team to play them in January? I sure as hell wouldn't. Although the team I'm partial to is going to be home watching all of the postseason games. Packers and the Lions in the early game of the day. Green Bay wins 31-24. And I made notes. I made notes so there would be some basic structure to my tendency to just ramble. And the first thing I wrote is big onions. Because Matt LaFleur out big onioned Dan Campbell. The Packers went for it 3 times on 4th down, scored 2 touchdowns going for it on 4th down. And one was 4th and 3 from the 22. That was the first touchdown that the Packers scored on the day when they were leading 3-0 in the second quarter. And Matt LaFleur explained after the game that that was the difference. But this is the key because, oh, by the way, and I'll talk about Dan Campbell in a minute and the fact that the Lions were 0 for 2 on 4th down. I can't stress this enough. And I remember when the NFL moved the extra point from the 2 to the 15 to encourage teams to maybe go for 2 more frequently. That was part of it. That was part of it. The one-pointer was too easy. It was too automatic. It was too perfunctory. Let's move it back and let's see what happens. Well, you know, what's happened is teams just still go out and they kick what's essentially what is it, from the 15 at 18, 33-yard field goal, right? But when they first started, we saw the Steelers under Mike Tomlin going for 2 a lot, to the point where it became predictable that they were going to go for 2. When it comes to going for 2, when it comes to going for it on 4th down, I say, screw the analytics. I say screw the analytics generally. I say no. You want to create a sense within a given game and a given season of unpredictability. You don't want the opposing defense to have a pretty good idea of what you're doing. You don't want them to know when they're defending 3rd down, they're also going to be defending 4th down because you approach it differently. If you're defending the sticks on 3rd down versus, hey, they're going to try to gain 4 or 5 yards here to make the 4th down play easier. LaFleur said it himself. He was able to tell Jordan Love on 3rd down, we got 2 plays. He already made the decision. And that's the first thing now that we see. Immediately after the 3rd down play, and it's good that the directors out there who are picking the shots, the first thing we see, coach headset, and he's looking at, when you see this, when that's the first thing you see after the 3rd down play, they're going for it. They're going for it. And we're seeing that more and more often. But this can't become the Packers' thing now. They were able to surprise the Lions with it yesterday because it wasn't their thing. They need to be unpredictable. That's the key. It worked yesterday because it was unpredictable. With the Lions and Campbell, you know, as I tweeted yesterday, there's a line between aggressive and asinine. And Campbell has been living on one side of that line lately. You can't just be, we're the team that always goes for it on 4th down, because everybody understands that. They prepare for it. They expect it. No, you want to be unpredictable. That's the challenge now for Dan Campbell and the Lions. Reset. Go back and start not going for it on 4th down. Create some doubt. It's going to take a while, though. Once you get that, they're the team that always goes for it on 4th down. I don't know how long it's going to take. It's going to take more than the rest of the season. But we saw it yesterday when the score was, and I want to make sure I have this right. The score was 31-21, right? Where is it? Here we go. 4th and 3 from the Green Bay 21. Down 10. And they dialed up a short pass that Jamison Williams dropped. Now, the analytics crowd will say the same thing they said when the Lions went for it in the NFC Championship, up 14 in the third quarter, win the field goal, and it would have been between 45 and 50, but they would have been back up 17 with a quarter and a half to play. Nope. Go for it. Josh Reynolds dropped it. So the argument was, well, that was the right call because if he hadn't dropped it, it would work, but he dropped it. You've got to factor in the possibility that the execution of the play is going to have some sort of a flaw, and that it's either going to be a bad pass, a batted ball, or the guy drops it. There's always a chance the guy's going to drop the pass, and Williams dropped the pass. That doesn't justify the decision. It indicts it. It's one of the risks you take. Hey, might have missed the field goal, right? And we don't have the luxury of an alternate universe where we know whether or not the field goal would have been good, but pretty good chance the field goal of 38 yards would have been good. 39 would have been the 21. So don't get caught up in, well, hey, Williams dropped it, or, hey, it was the right call. Williams dropped it. No, it's the wrong call because he dropped it. It's the wrong call because it's not unpredictable, because it's what they always do. Why in the hell don't you take the points there and make it a one-score game? Make it a one-score game. That was the criticism from the NFC Championship. Make it a three-score game. It's a two-score game. Make it a three-score game. Don't think about it in terms of points. Think about it in terms of scores. When you get into the second half, you forget about the actual points and think in terms of scores. We're up 2 scores. We could go up 3 scores. We continue this drive and score the touchdown. We're going to go up 3 scores. We kick the field goal on 4th down. We're going up 3 scores. We're down 2 scores. We score a touchdown on this drive. We're down 1 score. We kick the field goal. We're down 1 score. It seems so simple. And is the explanation as basic as the closer you are to the heart of the action, the harder it is to think clearly? I don't know. I'll never know that. All I know is some of this stuff seems pretty damn clear. Some of this stuff seems pretty damn obvious. And Dan Campbell has slipped into this habit/reputation of go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it. We are seeing now, this is the first real test case of the analytics age of a team that is go for it, go for it, go for it. What were they, 0-5 against the Eagles? Going for it? 0-2 yesterday against the Packers. The predictable team was 0-2. The unpredictable team was 3 for 3. Something to keep in mind as we see this after 3rd down. We know. Watch for that. They're going for it. All right. Boy, you really want to be unpredictable. Hey, you really want to be unpredictable? After the 3rd down play, act like you're don't do this. People are going to think you're not going for it, and then go for it. All right. I want to address a couple of things as it relates to the controversies that emerged from the game. There was a pool report yesterday, a 2-part pool report. One was with the NFL's head of instant replay, Mark Butterworth, and the other part of it were questions posed to the referee for the game, Ron Torbert. I'm going to focus on the Torbert part first. That was the timeout that they decided happened right before a false start on one of the 4th down plays. First half, I think the score was 10-7 at the time, Green Bay. The clock was ticking down towards 0. The right guard moved. False start, 5 yards back. Probably going to kick a field goal, make the score 13-7. Still a 1-score game. The officiating crew determined that Matt LaFleur had called a timeout. Now, the visual evidence seemed to suggest that he wasn't making the universal timeout signal until after the right guard, had moved. The explanation was he did it verbally. And these pool reports at times, they're so useless. They're just restating what we already knew. They're never going to say, hey, we got that wrong. Oh, yeah, that play? Oh, you're asking about that? Man, I wish you weren't asking about that play. Can you ask about a different play? Because we really got that one wrong. And Torbert said, the officiating crew decided that the timeout was called before the false start. Well, thank you. Yes, we knew that. We would like something a little more instructive. Like, what are the mechanics there? How did he hear it? It looked like, and he was asked the question, Torbert was, it looked like that LaFleur was covering his mouth when he was supposedly screaming timeout at a time when the Lions fans at Ford Field would have been on the loud side. How'd you hear him say timeout? And this goes back to, let's take a step back. We should require this. This is indisputable. Not saying timeout, this. They have this for a reason. You make the T. Until you make the T, it's not a timeout. Oh, we heard him whisper it. We saw his lips moving. No, this. That's a timeout. Everybody knows that's a timeout. So it's something that Lions fans should appropriately be miffed about, because it would have been 13-7, not 17-7. And if everything else played out for the rest of the half, the Lions would have been leading 14-13, and it's a completely different dynamic coming out of the locker rooms for the second half. The other aspect of the pool report, damn, I'm going a long time here. All right, we're kicking into overdrive. The other aspect of the pool report was the Dontavian Wicks touchdown, the first touchdown of the game. I wrote about this at PFT, and I'll defer to the Post, but for those of you who prefer to not read, it was a ruling on the field of a touchdown. And it looked at first like a touchdown, but then you look at the replay, okay, the ball arrives as the right foot is down. Then the right foot comes up. And the safety for the Lions is coming across Dontavian Wicks, and there's kind of contact. It's kind of a graze. And you see the ball go from in both hands to it moves, and it shifts, and he resecures it. But by the time he does that, he only gets 1 foot down. And we saw that play week 7, Thursday night, Steelers at the Bengals. It was just this weird kind of, they overturned the ruling of a Jamar Chase catch on the sideline. It was late in the first half, automatic review, came back from commercial. Oh, they've overturned that catch. Because you know what he did? You know what he did at the sideline after 2 feet were down? The ball moved in his hands. And the other part, now, obviously, before I explain the pool report, the ruling on the field was upheld. It was upheld. And there was an interesting conversation between Dean Blandino and Tom Brady. What about the movement of the ball? What about the movement of the ball? The ball moved. The ball moved. Wicks had it in both hands when 1 foot was down. That foot comes up, and the ball starts moving around, and then it gets resecured, and he doesn't get 2 feet down before he's out of bounds. The ruling was upheld. Mark Butterworth did the pool report, and the first response was the predictable, what we all saw. That's always going to be, pro tip for anyone who is the pool reporter. The first answer is always going to be an explanation of the ruling they made. They're just going to say what they did. Yeah, he had both feet down in control of the ball, so we determined it was a touchdown. Thank you. And the follow-up from Colton Pouncey was a good one. Was there a discussion about the bobble? And Butterworth said no, because these receivers are so good, they can do all this shifting around and it's still okay. Like, what the hell? That's not in the rule book. I checked. There's nothing in the rule book about if the receivers are really good, then it may look like they lost control, but these receivers are so good, they still had control. What is that? I'm a big proponent of the rule book as written being applied as written. There's nothing in the rule book that says, hey, man, these receivers are pretty good, There's no note. Receivers today are really good. Err on the side of concluding that they maintain control of the ball because they're really good. Like, what the hell is that? Here's all they needed to say. And I'm not quibbling with this at the end of the day, because I think this play fell into the bucket of whatever the ruling on the field, there isn't sufficient evidence, clear and obvious, to overturn it. If they had ruled no touchdown, it's not clear and obvious it was. They ruled touchdown, it's not clear and obvious it wasn't. I'm fine with that. But when it's time to do the pool report, that's what you need to say. That's the thing that is so easy to lose sight of. And sometimes I wonder, does the NFL want to get away from the clear and obvious standard? Do they want to admit The clear and obvious mistakes are being made. Do they want to re-officiate the play? I feel like they want to now, with replay, re-officiate the play from scratch. In an effort to get it right, they seem to be shifting away from the clear and obvious standard. And that was an example of, because that's the explanation. Hey, pool reporter, you want to know what happened? The standard's clear and obvious. And it wasn't clear and obvious that it wasn't a catch. It wasn't clear and obvious that he lost control. And if the ruling on the field had been no touchdown, it wouldn't have been clear and obvious that it was. All right. So the Lions now are, to use the technical term, screwed at 7-5. They've got the Cowboys. They're at the Rams. They've got the Steelers coming to town. They're at the Dolphins. And then they're at the Bears to end the season. Their margin for error is shrinking. They're currently on the outside looking in. They're in third place in the division. They got a problem. A year after going 15-2, being the number 1 seed, and looking pretty damn good out of the gates, other than the week 1 loss to the Packers, but they looked like they were still the Lions. And I had someone explain to me, a big Ben Johnson, former head coach in the NFL, a big Ben Johnson proponent. You wait and see what happens without Ben Johnson. You watch. You wait and see. And hey, I mean, Dan Campbell is the play caller. They've lost 2 out of 3. And they should have lost the Giants game. They should be, 1-3. And they beat the Commanders the day we didn't realize, well, we should have, because he had the glasses on and he's doing this the whole time. But the first game where he took over the play calling without anyone knowing, they won that one. But they're 1-2 since then, and they should be 0-3 since then. The Dan Campbell taking over the play, it's not, I'm sorry, Dan Campbell's a great head coach. Dan Campbell's a play caller. It ain't working. It ain't working. It's not working for the Lions this year. They got to dig deep, and they can recite all the cliches they want. They may not make it. The Packers are going to have a little bit of a challenge, but you know what? They may be in first place by the time the Black Friday game between the Bears and Eagles ends. Because the good news for the Packers, the Bears are about to get a dose of reality here. I mean, you look at the 8 of 9 games they've won, not exactly murderer's row. You look at what's coming up for the Bears. God, I can't read my handwriting. At the Eagles, at the Packers, the Browns, the Packers, at the 49ers, and the Lions. Good luck with that, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and company. The Packers have the Bears at the Broncos, at the Bears, the Ravens, and at the Vikings. Not exactly easy for them, but if the Eagles beat the Bears today, and look, this is a great game today. If the Bears win, we got to think differently about them as NFC North eventual champions. If they lose, Packers may end up winning the division, and the Bears may slip into that, okay, between the Bears, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and the 49ers, one of them isn't making it. All right, last game. The last game of the day. The Bengals defeating the Ravens 32-14. All 3 winning teams had at least 30 points yesterday. I like it when I love 31-28, 34-31. One or both teams in the 30s is perfect. You start getting up into the 40s, that's a little too much. One or both teams in the 30s, to me, is a perfect NFL game. I don't like 13-7. I don't want defensive struggle, punt. I want points. And really, it doesn't take much scoring to get to, a 28-28 game in the fourth quarter. Everybody scores 1 touchdown per quarter. That's good. And it gets you a nice final score. And the Ravens didn't hold up their end of it. They only scored 14. So credit to the Bengals defense. They had 9 straight games allowing 27 or more points. That tied an all-time record. They came 1 point from claiming the record for themselves against the Patriots, because the Patriots scored 26. Well, now all of a sudden, they hold the Ravens to 14 points. 5 turnovers. And is it as simple as Joe Burrow's back and it gives us a little swagger? It gives us some confidence? Burrow returning. The first thing that I wrote on the card here for the Bengals-Ravens game, why didn't Burrow play against the Patriots? It was only 4 days later. If all the things that Burrow said this week are true, And I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying if we accept them as true, I just want to play football. I just want to be there for my team. I want to be able to. Well, are we to believe that the arrow went from not healthy enough to play on Sunday to healthy enough to play on Thursday? He fully participated in practice Wednesday and Thursday of last week. That means, as we've learned, thanks to the Ravens' misadventures with the Lamar Jackson injury report last month, he took every first-team rep. Burrow did. 2 straight days of practice. And the way he looked last night, they may have beaten the Patriots. They're 4-8 right now. They could have been 5-7, which would have put them in a much better position to make a run down the stretch. And I know they said in the broadcast last night, and it's accurate, they were 4-8 last year when they hit the gas pedal, and they finished 9-8, but it wasn't enough. It went down to the final Sunday. It's going to be a little harder this year. It's going to be a little harder. Their better path may be to hope the Steelers and the Ravens both stumble enough that the Bengals can jump up and maybe win a 2 or a 3-way tie. I don't know how it would work out if the Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers are all tied. A 2-way tie, Bengals have a chance to complete the sweep of the Ravens when the Ravens come to town week 15. It's coming up quickly. So they'll hold the tiebreaker if that happens, but it gets complicated. And it's too early to do that kind of math. I'll defer to Steve Kornacki as we get closer to the end of the season. But the Bengals are still alive now. Burrow looked great. The Ravens did not. And the Ravens' 5 straight wins, when you consider who they won, I wrote it down here. Who'd they beat? They beat the Bears. That was impressive when you consider the Bears have otherwise won 8 of 9. That's the one loss, 30-16 in the last game before Lamar Jackson came back. They beat the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Browns, and the Jets. And none of those wins were particularly impressive. Even the Bears win, 30-16. It was close at the end. The Bears had that thing where they're driving and it's like, what the hell are they doing? The clock's running. Like, hello, is Matt Eberflus the head coach again? What's going on here in Chicago? And the Dolphins game 28-6, it was closer than that. But the thing with Lamar Jackson, and I saw this, and really anyone who has functioning eyes and has watched football for any amount of time knows Lamar Jackson was not the same when he came back from the hamstring injury. And since then, he's had a knee, he's had an ankle. He emerged from the Jets game with a toe injury. Now, a couple of times last night, he looked to be kind of running like he used to, but he's not playing like he used to, especially in prime time. Lamar Jackson had been a terror in prime time. Christmas 2023. Remember that game? I sure do. Went into San Francisco. Brock Purdy became a turnover machine, and the Ravens were unstoppable when Lamar was unstoppable. Last night, couldn't get it going. He had 3 turnovers himself, an interception and 2 lost fumbles. And the Bengals just took advantage of the opportunities, and they just kept pushing, and they kept pushing, and they kept pushing, and the Ravens just were not up for the fight last night. At home, in a critical game, they finally caught the Steelers. If they're ever going to win a game, that's the game to win against a rival that they are used to playing at home under the lights. This wasn't some new experience for the Ravens. Now, I don't know what to think of the Ravens at 6-6. And hey, the Steelers may be 6-6 come Sunday. And the Ravens and the Steelers get together next weekend in Baltimore for the first of 2 meetings. And then they wrap it up week 18. There's so many different possibilities and permutations. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be 1 week at a time. Where are we? Where do we go from here? And then there's going to be another week of games that screws everything up, and the percentages are going to be all over the place. And who the hell knows? And that's the way we like it. That's Pete Rozell's dream. The parity he wished for back in the 70s when it was the Steelers and the Cowboys and the Dolphins and the Raiders and everybody else. It's here. This is one of those years. We don't know how this stuff's going to work out. And there's a lot of teams that are going to be alive. So a lot of fan bases are going to be engaged in that critical month of December. I always say, every team claims that it wants to win the Super Bowl. And we know that's not realistic. What's realistic is being competitive down the stretch. After Thanksgiving, being competitive. You know why? Because then people show up for your games and they buy all that overpriced crap and they pay for parking. It doesn't matter if the tickets are sold. You need the people to show up and buy stuff. Oh, and Jimmy and Johnny and Jenny, you want them to have on their Christmas list Merch from the football team, not the baseball team, not the basketball team, not the hockey team, not the MLS team. You want them to want merch from the football team. You want that to be on the Christmas list. If the team's alive, better chance. They're going to want that alternate helmet, alternate jersey, alternate this, alternate that. Thanks, Nike. So, anyway, a lot of teams are going to be relevant down the stretch. I think I've covered everything worth covering. I think we've gotten through all 3 games, and I think we know where things are, which means we don't know where things are, which is perfect heading into the Black Friday game and the rest of the Week 13 slate. We'll be back Monday morning, bright and early, live on NBCSN. I saw that we're on some Comcast. I should know the name of the Comcast product since, I work for Comcast, but NBCSN is now on YouTube TV plus a Comcast product, and it's expanding to more and more platforms. We're live there. We're live on Peacock. We're live on SiriusXM 85, podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Sky Sports NFL. We'll be back Monday morning, but before that, it's Sunday Night Football, Football Night in America, 7 o'clock Eastern. Broncos at the Commanders. Very important game for the Broncos. Very important game. Look, I'm not saying this because I'm contractually obligated to, push the special, but very impactful game for the Broncos because the 1 seed is up for grabs, and the Patriots play the Giants on Monday night. Both teams have 2 losses. So this is a key game for the Broncos, who have been playing with their food lately, and they may play with their food against the Commanders on Sunday night and make it an interesting game. We'll see. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. Eat all the food you want. You can diet before Christmas and then do it all over again. Thanks for some of your time. We'll see you again real soon. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.